Get screen up and I'm going to get started, and we'll probably have more people shuffling in, but amazing. So this morning we are talking about supercharging SEO impact by understanding user intent. And I'm going to start first of all just by talking about some of the changes that have happened over the last year or so from a Google perspective, because I think they play into intent. So we will get to intent, but I'm going to start a bit earlier on, if that's all right. So if you've got questions, you can pop them in the chat. We will definitely have Q&A time at the end, so it might be that I come to them at the end. But yeah, let's get cracking. So we all know that Google likes to keep us on our toes, don't they? They're always making changes. There's hundreds of changes happening every single year. Some of them we know about, some of them we don't, just happen under the radar. And over the last 12 months, there's been two really big updates, which I'm sure anyone here that works in SEO, you will definitely have heard about them. So we've got the Core Web Vitals, which was supposed to roll out May last year originally. I think it ended up being June and then rolling out as the summer went on. And then we've got Mum, which is something which is going to start rolling out. Like bits of it will be starting to be in the algorithm now, but this is over the next couple of years. We're going to see more and more develop around Mum. But I thought it was important to mention both of these today. So Core Web Vitals is all about user experience. And when we're talking about intent, we're talking about users and humans and what it is that we think about. So Core Web Vitals, for anyone that's not been clued up on this and spending time thinking about it, it is now a ranking factor. So it's a really important part of your SEO strategy. But what is it? Well, there's three core metrics, and they're all around how your site loads. So it starts to get a bit more techie, and most of this talk is going to be a bit more about humans and keywords, but let's just get the techie stuff out the way. So the first bit is the largest contentful paint. So this is the largest item in the viewport that loads, first of all, in your website, how long it takes for that to load. So whatever the largest thing is. So if you've got a really big image or a really big video, how long does that take to load? And obviously the quicker, the better for your score. You've then got the first input delay. So this is the first time the user tries to do something when they've landed on your site. The moment between when they click and when something happens, how long that is, in how quickly the server responds. So again, the quicker, the better. And then we've got the cumulative shift layout. Now, this is the one that really grinds my gears, especially on mobile. As a website starts to load and it's on your mobile and you're about to click on something, and as you click, it's moved and you've clicked on the wrong thing, and then you've got to go back, and it's really annoying. Cumulative shift layout is all about how the page loads and the order that things load within. So they're the kind of three core metrics, but there are more that make up the Core Web Vitals. But if you think about it, it's all about that user experience, how it is for users to use a website and to be able to get to where they want to, find the information they're looking for. These are the scores, and we're going to share these slides afterwards so that you've got them, so you can see where you are aiming to score. And you can test your site. So this QR code, and again, we will send this round, will take you to the web dev tool where you can test your site. There's a few different ways you can test your site, and I'm sure most of you have tried this and looked at it. I think the other really interesting thing is you can test your competitors' sites. So it's really important, especially if you're struggling to get sign off on doing some of the devy changes that maybe don't feel that important to some of the business sometimes. A really good way of putting that case together is to look at how well your competitors are scoring, and then you can look at kind of saying, well, look, this will be holding us back because we haven't got the scores we need, and it is a ranking factor. So how do you make Core Web Vitals part of your digital strategy? Well, the first thing is about educating the whole marketing team as to what it means. And you don't need to go much further in depth than maybe what we've talked about just here, but it's making sure that they start to understand the impact. And some of that competitor benchmarking would be really interesting as part of that education. And then it's a case of building into your website testing plans. Who is it that signs off putting things on the website and making changes, and who's got control to do those things, and making sure they know about it and know that then we need to retest if we're making fundamental changes to the site. Obviously, if we're just changing a bit of text, we don't need to worry, but putting it into the plans. And then making sure that when you get scores that you weigh these up against user experience, because this shouldn't be a computer says no moment where we just go, oh, well, Google says my score's bad, so I have to do everything that the Google tool tells me to do. it might be that for some reason, some of the things that are maybe taking a bit longer to load are absolutely critical to your users and their experience on the site. And actually, balanced against speed, it doesn't matter so much. It's more important that they have that tool. Maybe it's a chatbot, something like that. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't and look at, is there a way to make it load quicker or to change how I was chatting to actually a business recently that have done a lot of work with Vodafone, and their chatbot gets a huge amount of use on their website. One of the things that they did to get round, firstly, from a sustainability point of view, not loading things that they don't need to, but also helping their Core Web Vitals scores, was to actually make it that when it first loads, it's just an image. They're not loading all the code in to actually be the chatbot. So actually, it's only then when someone clicks on the image to say, yeah, I would like to initiate a chat, then all of the technical stuff kicks into gear, but it means it's not there on the initial load, so it's lighter. So it's thinking about things in that way as well. So that's Core Web Vitals, big update last year. Now we've got Mum. This is exciting and this is changing, and I don't have all the answers on this, but it's something that we all need to start thinking about. So the idea of Mum, it's a multimodal, and it basically means that the algorithm is going to be able to start understanding text, image, video, all simultaneously, podcasts, audio, all those kind of things. So gone are the days where our main piece of content has to just be written content. We can actually start thinking about our audience and what's the best format for them to see this content as. Is it an image? Is it video? And this is just so exciting for content creators, for SEOs, for everyone that is trying to get a message out there online, because now it is more about right format for the user. Why is it important? Well, this is Google getting closer to replicating a human interaction. And as we're going to come on to talk about intent and being able to think about what as humans we need depending on what our intent is, this is great because no longer is it this long form content and really trying to prove that we're experts in what we're writing. We can do it through other means. And Google's getting really good at being able to be the person as the expert as opposed to the human. So they put out a piece when they created the Core Web Vitals update as a marketing piece to let the world know. And one of their examples was around, so say you wanted to go and hike up a mountain. So maybe you've already climbed Mont Blanc and you want to go and do Everest. If you were to use Google to try and work out what preparation was necessary, you're going to need to ask a series of questions. And based on what you're finding out, you're going to need to know what the next question is to ask. So maybe you did Mont Blanc in winter and you've got certain gear, but you want to go and climb Everest at a different time of year and you're trying to work out, what do I need? It's down to you to be asking the right questions to find the right answers. Whereas actually, if you were to go and ask someone in an outdoor supplies store that's an expert at hiking up mountains or climbing mountains, they would, off of the back of one question, be able to give you so much information. And that's where Google wants to get to. They want to be able to answer questions in that way. And the great thing about Mum as well is it's going to be working across different languages. So being able to interpret content and translate content. So actually your best piece of content about climbing Mont Blanc might be written in French, for example, or Swiss or something. And it's going to be able to help us find that information if that's where the best answer lies. So it's really exciting. But how do you start to make this part of your strategy, especially seeing as we don't know exactly and it's not all here yet? Well, for me, it's around embracing the right format for the content. So starting to think a bit more widely and not thinking just about text, but backing it up with transcripts where we can, because if actually the best piece of content you're going to put out this month is hidden in a video, if Google's not quite there yet, which I don't think it is, we need to maybe make sure that we've still got a way that Google can index that if it's really important. Things like structured data, we should be using these already, but really making sure we're good at using structured data to mark up everything so that where we've got different formats, Google really can understand what it is that format is telling us. And making sure we're optimizing images with alt tags and really thinking about using good images as well. So actually I was listening to a podcast recently and they were talking about the fact that Google's got really good at knowing stock images. And therefore they're not penalizing you. It's not part of the algorithm what your image is. But if Google's looking for originality, it's looking for authority, it's looking for all these great things, and you're just using stock images, it kind of almost devalues your message. And also, us humans, we've got fed up with seeing the same people. So looking at whether we can start to use different images. And then the last point on this is just to start thinking about as well that the metaverse is coming. So how could we start to integrate augmented reality, virtual reality into your strategy? Now, by saying this, I don't want this to be the buzz that apps were when they first were around, where everyone was like, oh, I've got to have an app. You haven't got to do this stuff if it doesn't make sense for your brand and audience. But if it does, then you should, and you should start thinking about it, because we don't know where search is going with the metaverse. We don't know what it's going to look like in the future, but it is something that if you can start integrating things like this into your strategy, you're going to be a step ahead of the competition. So what's the common thread here? Because I want to get us back to intent. So that's the big goings on that have been happening over the last 12 months from a Google point of view. But for me, the common thread here is that Google is focusing on humans. And it's ironic, really, because for so long we've been chasing Google, whilst actually Google's been chasing us. Like, we've been trying to work out what they're doing, and they've been trying to work out, well, how can we be more like humans? How can we think more like a human? So when you think about the updates that have happened over the last 10, 15 years, they all can be pulled back to being about humans. We think about Penguin and spammy sites. That was kind of stopping them sites being able to buy their way to the top by just buying links. Panda was about the user-friendly content, stopping us stuffing keywords and making it awful to read for humans. Mobilegeddon, about the fact that Google saw that the rise of mobile was happening and we needed to start making site owners care about mobile, etc., etc. It all comes back to humans, usability, UX, and trying to be closer to what we're looking for. Now, Google's mission is to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful. I've put a little tweak on that. For me, it's about to humans. It needs to be universally accessible and useful to humans, and that's really is what they're trying to do. But how easily, as an SEO person, do you forget about your audience? And you get wrapped up in the day-to-day of chasing a keyword and what it is that you're trying to do. Because I see this happening all the time. I see people getting they maybe do a bit of audience work at the start, and then it kind of just sits somewhere and gathers a bit of dust because they're in it. They're in the strategy and they're chasing search volumes and keywords. And I guess, how often as an SEO do you question, what does this user actually really want or need? What do they really want or need? And how am I best helping them with that? And if you do, how does it affect your strategy and how you work with the other channels as well, your colleagues or your other agency partners, whoever it is that's helping you run paid media and email? How well are you playing together? So let's go back to the basics. Why do we do SEO? Well, users have a need. They go to Google, we all do it. You search for something, and then ideally they're going to find your website if they're searching for what you do with relevant content, and hopefully they're going to convert, whatever a conversion means to you. So that's why we do SEO. So our first job as an SEO person is to understand that user need. What is it that's spurring them to pop whatever it is into Google and search for it? And how can we best help them? So when we think about the traditional funnel, we start first of all at identifying their need. That's what the users are doing, and we're there to raise awareness. Then they're researching their options, and we're there to help them consider and evaluate. Then they're ready to buy or inquire, whatever it may be. And we have to remember that sometimes that doesn't happen online. It might happen offline, as well as some of the other steps might be happening offline. There's conversations with friends that are happening, and other types of research that's happening. And then we get onto the fact that we want to retain and make them advocates for our brand. So it's all about nurturing. And from a digital funnel point of view, like, I see SEO being the real hero, or has the opportunity to be the real hero at that awareness stage, because SEO can really target all of those keywords and create all of that great rich content where we tend to see the higher search volumes, and be there to start that relationship when someone's first asking a question that's relevant to your brand and relevant to the product or service that you sell. Then as you come down the funnel and they start to consider more and they're starting to do their research, weigh up their options, This is SEO and paid media can play really well together here. At this point, it starts to make sense to pay for the traffic if we're not there organically, because we can see that there's a bit more intent, they're a bit more likely to convert. And then as we come on to being there for the conversion, SEO, paid media, email, if we've managed to capture their email, social. I mean, social is a different beast in itself because social can sit everywhere in the funnel. I know a lot of people are starting to use Instagram for their research, etc. So that's probably another talk. But at that point, when they're ready to convert, if we've followed them along the journey and we've built a relationship and we've cookied them at the right times, obviously with their consent, and we've captured the right detail and the right information, we should be able to be there for their conversion across the different channels, ready to pick them up. And then all channels should be playing at that relationship building. So Google talk about this less as a funnel and more about the messy middle. And I love this as a concept because it is messy. You go from this trigger stage onto exploration, evaluation, and you might move between the two. I know I do that. You go on, you think you're ready to buy something, you think you've evaluated it, but then actually, oh no, actually I'm going to one more search, and then you're back almost 2 steps before because another contender's come into your thought process. And then they get ready to move on to the purchase phase. But we must remember when we're looking at our data and our reporting that at the end of every analytics number is a human, someone just like all of us. And it's them that we need to remember that we're marketing to and that we should be thinking about. Keyword research is king when it comes to the intent side of this and the intent mapping. So I wanted to talk about gardening today. Now, I'm not a big gardener, so Google is definitely my friend when it comes to needing to know about gardening. But we've worked with a couple of clients in this space, and it's a really nice one to kind of show you a process. So the typical, I've moved on one too many. The typical plant research journey. So we start at this kind of inspiration stage, and people tend to be thinking contextually. So, for example, it might be plants for a small garden, plants for a shady garden, plants for a sunny garden. It could be anything like that. But we know that we want to buy a plant, but we have no idea what plant. And we're using the context of what we know about our space to look for inspiration. We then go on to this clarification stage. So that research will have probably thrown up some names of types of plants. It might be the Latin name. We might want to start asking about seasons to make sure that we're planting it at the right time, or conditions, etc. So we start to we're a bit more specific now around the type of plant because we've managed to get a better brief ourselves. And then, plant research is amazing. When they want to purchase, there's 2 ways that most of the time they search: buy plant name for sale. Isn't that the dream, to be able to know that that's all you need? But at this point, we know that they're ready to buy. So this is where we can really optimize and get them to the right page, ready to purchase. And then there's tons of keywords that sit in the retention, but also straddle inspiration phase, because some people might be searching this for beforehand, but how to plant, how to care for, those kind of things. And this is cyclical because actually, if you're like me, you probably kill the plant and then we need to go back to the start again and start contextually, right? Let's start again. Maybe that wasn't the right plant. Always blame the plant. It definitely wasn't my care. But this kind of thing is what you should be doing for your business, is thinking about that research journey. And then we can start to layer in what they're looking for. So as an example, we've got here across the funnel kind of where people might start with plants for shade. They then might find that a geranium plant is good for shade. There you go. You definitely learned something new today, if nothing else. And geranium plants for sale. You see as you go down, the likelihood of converting is going up, but actually our search volume is starting to drop down. And that's okay, because we know that we're getting more specific. So I'm going to run us back through the funnel, and we're going to just talk about the types of keywords and intent that we're likely to see across the funnel. So if we start at that awareness phase where they're identifying their need. So at this point, the user is actually defining their brief through research. They might not know their exact brief of what they're looking for. And the user has a number of jobs to do, and this is a really nice way to look at it. We were talking to Auto Trader recently, actually, and they've done a huge amount of research around the jobs that a car buyer has to do. And actually, there's tons of them. Absolutely tons. But by mapping that out, they've almost got their funnel kind of sorted. But they also know that for every one of those jobs that the person has to do, they've got an opportunity to create content, to be the person, to be the business there, holding that person's hand, helping them to do that job. And that's going to make it so much more likely that they're going to convert with Auto Trader because of that process. So thinking about the jobs that the customer needs to do. Awareness keywords, the kind of characteristics that we tend to see, they tend to be those big, broad, open phrases. They tend to be shorter phrases, tend to be a lack of detail. There might be just one attribute. So like our shady garden example. We tend to maybe see which or best type of searches, this or that. And they tend to be high search volume. So this is lots of people are searching for this because it's the start of a journey. And being present at awareness is key to being able to build that relationship. If you're not there and you just pop up at the conversion stage, you're this new brand out of nowhere when someone else has been maybe holding their hands and helping them along the way. So you're so much less likely to get that conversion. So what must we consider when targeting awareness keywords? Well, high search volume often means high competition. So these aren't necessarily going to be the easy phrases, and nothing's easy in SEO really, is it? But they're not going to be the easiest to achieve. So we need to think about that. Lack of intent means that conversion should be a future metric. Now I'm going to spend some time talking about this throughout because your success measures are really important, and you getting these right is what will make you look good as an SEO person for delivering on your strategy. So I've got an ugly functional slide alert. I apologize, it's really ugly, but it does what it needs to do. So how people assume SEO should be measured: rankings, traffic, bounce rate. So rankings and traffic, well, for me, these are often vanity metrics. They don't necessarily tell us how well the SEO is actually performing at driving the business forward. Bounce rate, well, thank God in GA4 it's going, or it's going to be in a different guise, because it's only useful when taken in context and definitely isn't a sign of good or bad SEO. And then leads and sales. Well, the question here is this a fair metric based on the strategy? So we've been talking about awareness at the moment. If that's all you're optimizing for and someone's measuring you on how many sales came from SEO, well, probably not that many. Probably started the journey for lots of sales, but definitely wouldn't have been the final reason that the sale got pushed across the line if that's not where you're optimizing your efforts. So how SEO should really be measured is a mixture of all of these different things, and thinking about the different leads that you get: awareness, consideration, and purchase, and how well you're linking that with your other digital channels. Because it might be that SEO is the star that starts the conversation, but it might be paid media or remarketing that pushes them over the line. So you want to get your tracking aligned to know that that's happening and to be able to report on that, because that is still SEO doing an amazing job. But if you've got a boss or a client that's expecting leads and sales and they're not seeing it directly from SEO, they might think you're doing a bad job. So a mixture of all these things and thinking about what's right. So the number one takeaway is that different parts of your SEO strategy need different measures. And that is all around making sure that you're setting yourself up for success and for being able to get people to continue to buy into doing SEO. So for each of the areas of the funnel, I'm going to show you some kind of types of metrics that might be useful. So it might be things like engagement and newsletter signups, or downloads and video views, social follows, all these types of things. You can see them on screen. But these are the softer metrics that show that someone's finding something that's useful to them, but isn't necessarily going to be the sale. But it says that, do you know what, we got them to a page where they were able to find out more information and it looks like they did engage. Do not underestimate the importance of the landing page though, because thinking about intent isn't just around thinking about what keywords we should be chasing, it's about where we should be landing them. So we must ensure we're optimizing the right page for the user journey. We can't have, if you've got an awareness keyword, a consideration, and a ready to buy kind of keyword all landing on the same page, you've got a problem, because it's going to serve one of those well. It can't serve all three of those well, or it will just be confusing and maybe it won't serve any of them well and the user will leave. So we also can think about our language and call to action. So at Reflect Digital, one of our specialisms is around human behavior. And a big part of that when it comes to SEO and digital marketing is language and being able to speak the right language for the audience. So at this point, we can be thinking about how through language, we can be priming and anchoring the user, getting them to think about that future sale, getting them in the right state of mind that they want to buy from us, and anchoring them around price, etc., early on, but without being pushy, but starting to help that journey. And your SEO success is going to be defined by how well you manage expectations and how well you've thought about this process and have thought about right page, right phrase, right measurement. So that's awareness. I'll move through some of these a little bit quicker now because they're a bit shorter. But as we start to think about consideration and evaluation, the user now has a vision. They know what they're looking for. Their research has helped them with that. They've got a brief. So it's now your job to understand what happens from that vision and the typical process they're going to go through and the next questions they're going to ask until they're confident and ready to buy, and to map your keywords accordingly. So the types of characteristics we see around consideration keywords are things like solution focused, maybe product or service focus. They're going to be more specific, more attributes. They're going to be asking maybe more question-based search phrases. And we might see the search volume drop off a little bit. It might be more of a medium search volume. And if we understand this journey, we can be sure that we're optimizing the right page and offering the right call to action. So actually, if we think back to awareness, if we'd said buy now as the main thing on the page, we're probably going to scare them off because they don't even know what they're ready to buy and we're already chasing them to purchase. At this point, you'll have that as a call to action, but also you're going to want some more call to actions around finding out more and more detail. We can also start to really play nicely with the other channels. So I've already kind of alluded to this, but thinking about how, like, do your paid team know what type of keywords from an intent point of view that you're chasing? And are they working to be sure that they're there to take the reins on the next phase if maybe SEO isn't working in that area at the moment and not optimized for those keywords? This should be something that you really map out. And I always refer to this as a connected journey because that's what, as a digital marketing team, so stepping one step back from being an SEO as a digital marketer, that's what we want. We want to connect the dots of that journey and help the users get from A to B, C, D, wherever it is that they're going to convert. So example metrics that you might see at the consideration phase are going to things like scroll depth. So maybe if you've got a really long article that's got loads of information and helping them make decisions, we might want to know how far do they get into reading that article. Live chats, they might be asking questions, interacting with a chat bot. FAQ interactions, they're asking a bit more, they're trying to understand a bit more. Reviews as well. This is the point where they might start to be really trying to understand, are you the place to buy from? Is this the right product? So then they're at the point that they're ready to buy or inquire. So the user's ready to convert. What does it mean for us? Well, we get excited because this is the good stuff. And here we're going to see much more focused keywords. They're going to be likely to be smaller search volume, and there might be more of them, lots of variations of them. So types of characteristics we might see here are things like branded keywords, buy or for sale, as we saw with the plant example, compare X and X, how much is, highly specific product or service terms, or maybe those review terms where they're asking really specifically for a review about something. I was doing this yesterday. I was booking a hotel, and my final 3 hotels before I purchased, review of hotel name for each of them into TripAdvisor to have a look. But also looking at Google reviews as well, because actually you see slightly different reviews between the two. So here you'll be seeing maybe more niche, kind of low volume, but attribute heavy terms. They're going to be a lot more descriptive, a lot more likely to be longer form terms. And the landing page for these keywords needs to be more focused. We need to be ready to help them to get on their way and make their purchase or do their inquiry, making it easy for them. Example metrics we might have here are things like sales and inquiries or bookings, whatever that final call to action is for you. Telephone call tracking is important. Add to basket, and then making sure you've got an abandoned basket and remarketing if they don't complete. But here also is where you want to start thinking, if you've got an online to in-store experience, is there any way to tie the two together? Is there something from their research that some kind of code they can give at the checkout to get something off, but so that you can see they followed the process through? And then finally, we're on to that retention and advocacy. Well, this is where you're investing in the future relationship. This is where you're thinking about, once they've got my product or they're engaging with my service, what other things might they be searching for that I can be there to help them with? So these keywords are going to be those kind of long-term research phrases. So an example I was thinking of yesterday, actually, around, like, I use, since the pandemic, I quit the gym and I do all my gym stuff at home. So I now use Les Mills On Demand, but actually they've been doing more and more content around nutrition and things like that that ties into what they do. And that's brilliant, because that keeps me, if I'm searching for stuff and I keep seeing a brand I'm already interacting with producing that content, it makes me feel more connected. Whereas actually, if I find another brand is answering my questions, maybe I'll start to get interested in working with them and changing brands. So this is all about the long term. So the types of characteristics we'll see around keywords here, around like how-tos, guide to, user manuals, might be community or fan club type keywords, news or latest update keywords, all that kind of thing that once they've got your product or service that they might want to know, that shows that they're still interested and you can be there to be the brand helping them. Example metrics here. So these are similar to actually the first kind of metrics we see around awareness, where we want to see downloads, newsletter signups, engagement, returning user rate, maybe social engagement, getting them onto our social channels. So that's SEO conquered, right? Yeah. Wow, maybe not. Maybe not. We need to zoom out. We need to zoom out, because we can't just be SEOs just in the detail. If we want to be the best of the best, we need to be making sure we zoom back out. And oh, sorry, my clicker's slowing down. So why should we zoom out? Why am I saying we should? Well, considering how the channels connect is priceless. And if you're the one making those moves within your business and being the one to start to pull those channels together, whoever's overall in charge of marketing, or your overall boss, is going to love you, because this is where the good stuff really starts to happen. This is where you move from just SEO to next level SEO, because it's really intelligent and it is working across your whole strategy. So we do, and this is just an example, these end up as massive Miro boards of data. So this is what I could fit onto a slide, but we think about our different personas. So we do a lot of work around personas and breaking them down to get to what their intrinsic motivations are. We don't want to know male, female, this age group, etc. Some of that is sometimes useful for paid media and targeting. But what we want to know is, why would someone buy this product or interact with this product or buy this service, whatever it may be? And what are they feeling? What are their pain points? All those good things, so that we can start to understand more about the audience. And then we can start to map where they're spending their time and start to see, are there opportunities between those different channels? And if SEO is playing in here, what kind of content messaging do we want? What's our call to action? How are we going to move them along that journey? And we do this for every persona, and we do it in detail, because this is where you start to spot those opportunities, and you can really see your teams start working better together, because suddenly whoever's in charge of email is shouting, I know, I've got a way that we can interact and pick up that person and move them along the journey through this great email journey, for example. So planning your strategy against the customer journey is actually all your customer wants. They want you to help them. If you ever ask someone, would you like some help with making a decision? They would say yes, for sure. And actually that's what you're trying to do through a search journey and through that research across the different channels. So this isn't Big Brother and getting too invasive into understanding intent. This is what they want you to do. They want you to help them get to the point where they can make the right purchase. And this results in this kind of seamless journey, and it makes it easy for them to convert. Makes them easy to choose your business. Tracking is going to be absolutely critical to success here. And remembering that not all SEO should be measured in the same way. If you're not using GA4 yet, you should be starting to use GA4, because we've got end dates coming soon, and we want to start getting that data in there so that you've got historical data to benchmark against. And making sure that we're agreeing the right metrics for the right keyword groups is critical to making you look good and ensuring that you're setting your strategy up for success. Top tips are: be human, put your audience first, put yourself in their shoes. And if you can't easily put yourself in their shoes, talk to your audience and be getting feedback from them. Get a handle on the tech side of the core web vitals. I mentioned that up front. It's the techie side of SEO, or it sits within that technical remit, but it is about user experience, and it is very closely linked in that if we're making sure we're landing them on the right page with the right content, and we're not trying to handle 3 different types of journey on one page, we're probably going to be able to score better with our core web vitals as well. Map the intent of your audience. So spend time, get a massive whiteboard, do it on a Miro board, think about all of these different parts of the journey. And then start to ensure you've got the right content format. So remember, Google Mum is rolling out, it's happening, it will get better and better over time. So don't be afraid to use a content format that maybe traditionally from an SEO point of view might not have been the best. But remember, it's still not 100% there, so you might want your transcripts. So now you understand your audience and you understand where they are in their journey. Make sure you're optimizing the right pages, doing that conversion rate optimization as well to be sure that you've got the right call to actions and that you're really investing in getting the person to the right page at the right time and helping them on their journey. And then just remember that different parts of your SEO strategy require different measures. So make sure you get that bit right, because that will set you up for success and to be able to measure successfully, and also to be able to feel good about it yourself, because you're going to feel that you're making the right decisions because you're seeing the right data coming back. And that's it. So there's a little QR code there if you want to find me on LinkedIn, but just Becky Sims and you'll find me on LinkedIn. I will stop sharing my screen now. And has anyone got any questions? You can either pop them in the chat, or you're very welcome to come off of mute and ask.